to give a quick shout out to Wolfsburg Motorworks, and Jack has loaned us a 1962 VW ragtop sunroof Bug. It's very cool. Did I say that right? I think I did.
So we have Kate and we have Todd and Sue who are back home in the chat rooms and answering questions for you, and we will try to do a Q&A at the end. So put your questions in there and chat away. We'll also be saving those questions for tomorrow too. So
I think we'll pass it over to Ben. Ben, are you ready to do this? Here he comes.
Okay.
Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
Wow. I'll lose my night
See what we're
vision
talking
there.
about?
Yeah. I was wondering why you couldn't say where I was.
It's
awfully bright in front of these lights, which will be interesting because it'll mess with my night vision. So
how are you feeling?
Cool.
Are we? Is the light about right now, or is it
still? It's great.
It's perfect. Okay.
Oh yeah. What happens is pretty much the sun goes down, and right after the sun goes down, everything around you is being still lit. And even though the sun is down, it's lighting the atmosphere, and it would be way too bright to light paint. About a half hour after sunset, then the sun can no longer light the atmosphere that's up here, the clouds and things, and then instead you get a nicely, almost intensely blue sky. And you don't usually see it quite as much with your eyes unless you're looking directly the direction the sun went down. But if you do an exposure that's a little brighter than what your eyes would see, you really get the blue coming out. And we're at that point now. But there's a point when it's just too much light coming in, and I think we're just about passing that point right now. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about that tomorrow more, because there's different kinds of twilight, they call it. When the sun goes down 6 degrees, each 6 degrees changes the way things look. And so there's a certain time you want to shoot to get a blue sky, and there's a completely different time you want to shoot to get the stars. And so we're starting off with the blue sky. Now, the blue sky does present one challenge, and that is if I light paint where I don't have a blue sky, instead I go out at midnight and there's nothing up there, then I can walk right into the scene and walk around as much as I want. As long as the light from my flashlight never falls on me, I never show up.
Right.
But here, if I stand next to the car and I'm painting it and I'm in the frame, what I'm doing is I'm blocking the camera's view of the blue sky. So I will show up as a dark, like silhouetted, blurry thing because I'm moving around. So that's one of the challenges.
So you never have photos that you show up in them ever? You don't make a mistake to where your arm is in it, your hand?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not that my arm or hand usually shows up. It's that I show up as a silhouette. I block the camera's view of the sky. It's rare for part of my body to show up, because in order to have that happen, let's say I'm light painting you and I turn a flashlight on. I come in and I'm painting light on you, and if you look at the direction the light's going in, it's this way. It's completely black out here. In order to have it happen, I'd have to accidentally do that.
Right.
What's more common is that when I'm painting light somewhere, I might point the flashlight such that it goes at a certain angle and the camera sees the edge of it. And then when I'm moving it, you see a little streak of white light. And you can run into that. So that's why this is a modified flashlight.
All right, so can we talk about that? Because I can only imagine the internet is saying, tell us about this flashlight.
Oh, well, this is my favorite flashlight, and this is an expensive, nice flashlight. But you don't need this. You need just a flashlight. And that can be the $7 variety you get at the hardware store. I would suggest starting with a flashlight that has one bulb in it, and you will find that traditional flashlights put out extremely yellow light. And so sometimes that can be a little bit of an issue. More modern LED bulbs put out more of a white or slightly blue light, and I find I like it a little more, and I can compensate for it. I can push it warmer, but it's not like it's going to dominate. The color isn't going to dominate what I'm painting. So, but this flashlight is my favorite. This is an LED Lenser M7R, and what I like about it is it's extremely bright, so I can start painting a little earlier, because otherwise a dimmer flashlight wouldn't quite do it, or I can paint things further away. And you can push or pull the front of it, and it changes the focus, the beam.
Oh, really?
So it can be nice. And I don't know that you'd see it here on you, but yeah.
Do you know how far away you can paint?
It all depends how dark it is. I can
sure.
Try to get the trees over there. I think I can see something over there.
That's so cool. I had no idea that there were $300-$400 flashlights. I didn't know.
This isn't $300 or $400 though.
It's more?
No, this is less than that.
Okay.
But this is an expensive flashlight. Might be $80 or something like that. Don't start with one of these. Only start with this when you become addicted. then, it's a lot cheaper than a lens and other things.
Which Ben is addicted to light painting.
Yes, I am. So.
So interrupt us at any time if
Sure.
once you're ready to go.
I'm
but
ready
we
to
can-
go.
Oh,
So,
okay. Then let's
I
go.
can do whatever. So at this point, the sky has got a nice blue color to it, and it's not overly bright, other than here with the lights. And I think we're going to be good to go. In general, on my camera, I'm setting it in manual mode to begin with. And my general camera settings, you got to start somewhere, is ISO 100. That's give me the lowest noise. I'm going to do f11 with a wide-angle lens. F11 usually gives you enough depth of field as long as your subject matter is not really close to the lens. Tomorrow when we do tabletop stuff and we got the camera really close to the table, I might have to shoot at f16, f22, or something else. But with a wide-angle lens and the car a little bit away, f11 is nice because it lets a lot of light in. So manual mode, ISO 100, f11, and then we'll vary the shutter speed. We'll just do tests and see what do we need to get the blue sky to look appropriate, and we'll just go with that. And then in about a half hour, or just under a half hour, the sky will start going black. And then we won't have to worry about the blueness of the sky, and we can do whatever length exposures we want in general. And then I might switch to a mode called bulb mode, which I'll talk about tomorrow too, where I can use a shutter release and just press it to open it and press it again to close the shutter. And then you're just out there painting as long as you want. When you're done, you walk back to the camera and close it. Whereas at the beginning, you'll find me fumbling because I won't remember how long 20 or 30 seconds is, and I will end up either not finishing my painting, or it will, I'll just be standing next to the camera, waiting for it to close.
Well, it helps all of us to see you fumble. So that's
Yeah,
how we
cool.
learn.
Can I ask you one more question? Did
Yeah.
you modify that?
I did modify this. The only thing I did is I took black gaffer's tape, and I took a piece of, I usually use those little cards that fall out of magazines, for subscribing. And what I did is I just took one of those cards, I put black gaffer's tape on one side, and I wrapped it around here. And then I used gaffer's tape on the outside to wrap around to tape it on there. We'll do one of those tomorrow. But it just makes it so the end of the flashlight is recessed. And that's so if I'm painting light onto something, the camera won't see the edge of the flashlight as easily. I have to turn it quite a distance before it sees it.
Great. Well, I think we're ready to paint.
All right, let's do it.
Here's the exposure right now at ISO 100.
Oh, awesome. Okay, these lights are putting in just a little bit, I think, on the left side. Yeah, you can see them spilling out there. So if we can either tilt them or turn those off, that would help. So, see what our camera settings are. I'm at ISO 100, f11, and we're just going to try a 10-second exposure. And all I'm doing is seeing how dark is the car going to be and how bright is the sky. So right now I'm getting a nice blue sky, and the blue sky is fading down to more of a whitish color on the horizon, and the car doesn't look all that lit. There's a little highlight on the side that might be from the light hitting from the horizon or some of our video lighting, but I think it's mainly from the horizon. So this car is just waiting to be light painted. The main thing is I'm trying to get the car in shadow so that the sun or other objects are not lighting it. And now I'm going to do a test with this flashlight to see how bright of a result do I get when I light paint. So I'm just going to open the shutter, turn on my flashlight, and walk into the scene and light the car just a little bit to see what does it look like with this amount of light. I'll probably show up blocking the blue sky. I just want to see how bright's my flashlight on the car. And if you look at it, it looks almost like the reflection from a pool of water. And that's because my flashlight was being held very close to the car, so you can see where each little paint stroke of light was. And if you like that look of kind of the pool of water, you can be that close. If you want a softer look, we can open the shutter, and I can light from outside the frame. I'm standing just to the left of the camera, And since I'm further away, it should be softer light where you can't see the actual little brush strokes. It doesn't look like a reflection from a pool of water. And so it depends on what style you want to go with. With this kind of classic car, I think it'd be nice to keep it nice and clean. Now, when it comes to objects like this, it can look overly boring if I light it straight from where the camera is. So right now I'll open the shutter, and I'm going to light it from right here. And I'm just going to paint some light across the whole car. I'm standing right behind the camera. What's going to happen, though, is you don't get all that much shade. It looks like you have a flash on the front of your camera, and it can be a bit on the boring side. I find that three-dimensional objects look much better when they're side lit, when you get the light source away from the camera. So, let's see. John, do you mind being my shutter person?
Sure.
And, oh, sorry for going in front of you there. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to walk out of the frame, and I am to the right of the car. And what I'm doing is when I move, I'm looking at the left side of the car where the fender is. And I'm walking towards the right, over towards the driver's door, until I can't see that fender. And so from right here, I don't know if you can see where I am at all, but I am to the right of the car, and I can't see the passenger side fender. So from here, if you want to open the shutter,
Open.
if I light, I know this light is not going to get on that side of the car. Right after that, I could run to the other side if I have enough time in my exposure and light the other side less. I'm guessing the left side will be rather dark, and we'll have just a hint on the right. So if I look at the right side of the car, I can see that I've put just a little bit of light on it, and you'll see that none of the light falls onto the left side. That can also be useful if you use colored gels. If I hold a colored gel in front of the flashlight, I can make it so just that part of the car becomes green or red or some other color by holding a colored gel. The challenge right now is to have enough time to paint both sides of the car. But if you currently look at the sky's getting a little dark. So I think we can start to extend our exposure and let that sky get brighter, which will give us more time to paint. So this is a 10-second exposure at f11. I'm going to go on the camera. I'm going to try a 20-second exposure at f11. So I'm going to get ready, and what I want to try to do right now is just paint the two sides of the car different amounts so they have more of a difference in contrast, and try to make it so my angle is quite different from where the camera is. So right now, if you want to open the shutter, John. And then I'm going to run right behind the car to the other side. As long as I do it quickly, I don't show up. And I'll light this side a little bit less. I think only the hood is visible in there. And we'll see what we get. See if our sky is too bright. I think our sky looks nice. Starting to get the car. And I just need to be a little bit more even. And I think the top of the hood and the top of the car itself will be nice to get. But in general, right now, I'm staying outside of the camera's view in general. Or if I am in it, I'm barely in it, because I'm worried about standing next to the car and creating a shadow where the sky is. So I'll do that on purpose, though. And let's see what happens. I'll walk to the other side. I covered the flashlight with my hand when I went to the other side. And let's see if we got a big shadow where the sky is. Yeah, if I come in here, I don't know if you guys can see the zoom up or not, but there's a big shadowy thing right here. Also, I can see the edge of my flashlight as a little white streak there, and possibly over closer to the car, because I wasn't being careful. I was closer to the car, so you get more of the look of that reflected water. So, let's see what our sky looked like. Sky's nice and dark, so I think we can extend our exposure even longer. At this time is when you can, the light's changing rapidly. And once I get to what I have right now, which is 30 seconds at f11, you have a good amount of time to paint light. And so now I can come in and be a little more careful with this, and let's see what I can come up with.
Ready?
Go ahead. I didn't hear it open, did it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and one thing we got started so quickly I didn't even think about, which usually I'm thinking about, not used to having a whole crew doing this, is focus. What happens with focus is if you leave it on autofocus, your camera's not going to take a picture, because in this darkness, it's going to search for focus because it's so dark, it won't be able to see anything. And so at this point, if your lens is not already set to manual focus, you can run into issues. There we go. So if I look at that, the car's relatively evenly lit, got a little bit of light on the ground, and I move fast enough if I was in there that I didn't create a big problem with the sky. There's a chance I can see a tiniest bit of me in the upper left above a tree, but I won't know until I get it on my big screen. So that's not looking bad. So let's say it's this dark out and you need to focus. Here's what I would do. We're on manual focus right now, and I would do one of two things. I would either look through the viewfinder and point my flashlight right at the car and then manually focus. Sometimes that can be hard to see, though, through a little bitty viewfinder. So the alternative is on the back of some cameras, and I'm not sure if we have it going on this one. There's a button where you can hit and it turns on live view. This is not my camera, so I'm not sure if I can get in there. Let's take a quick look. I don't think so, because doesn't that usually get me there?
No, it's probably not set in the menus.
Okay. Right now it doesn't look like live view is available, but if live view is available, you would see the live view through the camera's back screen, and you can zoom up to like 10 times zoom, so you get a really zoomed in look on the image. Then if you put your flashlight on the image and do your focus, you can get very precise with it. All right, so now we're going to do 30 seconds at f11. Let's see if we can get a nice even one. Open. Running across the camera right in front of it. And I'm going to try to get some of the interior. Not sure how much of the interior is visible, though. Yeah, it's just not all that even on the door and on the hood. Interior is a little extra bright. Now, you can do multiple exposures and combine them, which is something I like to do. I find I have the most control then. So looking at this image, I find that the middle of the hood is a problematic area. So sometimes what I'll end up doing after getting one image that looks okay is I'll end up lighting only those problem areas to make sure I have them nicely lit. So usually I'll end up doing that if I'm doing the same scene once the sky turns black, if it happens to. When the sky turns black, then we can do as long of exposures as we want, and we can shoot all sorts of things. But I'm going to do a couple more of these, see if we can get one all by itself. Okay. Open. And I can focus my flashlight here. Make sure I get the middle of that hood. And if I have any extra time, I might do something fancy, like shoot light under the car to get some of the grass. Okay. Yeah, so the light coming out under the car is interesting. Still getting the blue sky. And it's mainly in the middle of that door that I never seem to light evenly. And it's not that everything should be even, it's just it should be pleasant. And so I think it looks nice with the wheels and the general paint that's there. So now just try different varieties. Now, in this case, the headlights are turned off, and it can look really interesting if you get them on. If you have access to the inside of the car, and you can turn them on. At the beginning of the light paint, you can just turn them on for maybe 2 seconds, and then close it up, and then go about painting the car. And it's okay if you open the door and close it, as long as the interior light doesn't turn on for too long and catch whoever's doing that. But let's say that instead you have a car that is in a junkyard. Let me see if I can find a special light. I have a little bitty light, I don't know how much they can see anything, on a stick. It's a light that I can bend in various ways, but it doesn't need to be one like this. All it needs to be is really small, like the kind of light you would have on your keychain. I've put a little piece of black tape around the edge of it so that you wouldn't see the actual bulb itself, and I can use that to light up the headlights. So I'm going to try one where I do that. So before I do, let's just see what it looks like on this car. What happens is, in the back of the headlights is a reflector, and that reflector will take the light that I put in here, and it will reflect it all the way around, and it can come out the opposite side. So if I'm lighting the top, it might be coming out the bottom. And so I can go around in a circle like this, lighting it, and I just mainly need to try to keep my hand out of the way, like that. But this could just as well be my hand right in the photo, like this. Just try to keep it off to the side. You don't have to have the one that's on a flexible stock. So let's see what it looks like if I try that. I'll light both headlights, and we'll see. So open. And then I'll use my normal flashlight. Go to the other side of the car. I might have stood still for too long for that sky. And let's see what we have. It's hard to say when it comes to headlights because different styles look different. Yeah. So if you have access to the controls of the car, great, go ahead and turn them on. But oftentimes I'm finding cars that are parked in the street that just look interesting and I want to shoot. And other times they're in a junkyard where I have no access. And so that's how I might go about lighting the headlights. Yeah. Now at this point, if I still want a blue sky, I'm going to have to adjust my exposure. And this is about the point when I can start doing longer exposures. And let's see if I have somewhere around here. Do you know where the, over here. I have some accessories here that I like to use. One of them,
The bulb.
yeah. You want to slide that in and hook it up? What I have is a wireless trigger. A wireless trigger is a device you can buy that plugs into the same port that your cable release would plug into. And that's what he's doing, pushing in right now. And if he turns that on and I turn my end on, I have a little remote in my hand, I can trigger the camera myself. And when this is in bulb mode, I can control the exact length of the exposure. If I have it in my hand right now, I'm just going to hit the button. And I just hit it and let go, and I heard the shutter open and close. But if I press it and I set this thing to bulb mode, there's a little B on it. Now if I press it once, it'll open, and I could be around painting the car right now, and then I can press it a second time, and it'll close. So right now I still have a semi-blue sky, and because I can start using bulb mode, the reason I'm using bulb mode is because we can go beyond 30 seconds now and still get our exposure without the car showing up too much. So now let's try a few things. I'll do one that looks a little bit watery by lighting it closer, and I'm just going to have to move very quickly so I don't block the sky. So I'm up close, I'm maybe 2 feet away, 2.5 feet, and I'll open the shutter. Actually, this one's not going to look watery because my flashlight is zoomed way out. So it's a really wide beam. Go to the other side. Sometimes you can get the headlights by just trying to bounce a little light on them. And then I can just hit the shutter release myself, and then I determine the length of the exposure. I'm guessing the sky will be a little dark. Yeah. My headlights look a little bit lit up because I just popped a little bit of light in, but my sky's still on the dark side, so it tells me I should slow down and just get comfortable now because I don't have to be limited with really short exposures. So my flashlight that I use, one of the reasons why I like this one is if I turn it on, I can control the beam from a relatively sharp point to a really wide one, and it puts out a good amount of light. But you can use a standard household flashlight. If you need a wide beam, you have to be further away, and if you need a narrow beam, you'd have to be closer. So let's try to do one that looks a little watery. I'm pointing my flashlight straight up just so it isn't hitting part of the car, and I'm getting ready to open the shutter. So here goes. I'm just kind of doing little swirls to make it look watery. Got a small enough beam where it should be able to work. I'm hoping I'm not going to show up too much by blocking the sky. Going to the other side of the car. And I might try to light the interior a little bit. I can come in then if I want to get the headlights. I'm just going to try to pop a little bit of light from a little distance. I blinded myself because it came right back at me. And then I can start doing other things because I can go a longer exposure to get the sky. And so in this case, I want to see if I can get the ground to look interesting. So I'm going to light it from underneath. I'm behind the car, I'm by the back tire, turn my flashlight on, and I'm just trying to spill light beyond the car onto the ground. And then I'll close the shutter. Although, has it been at least 30 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's see what we got. We got a more watery looking painterly thing. That's because I was much closer with my flashlight. And you notice it was much evener when I was further away. And we got some light on the ground. I'm missing light on the wheels though. So that's one thing I could consider that I was ignoring. And the interior is pretty dark. But let's compare that to some of the others. I don't know if you guys are seeing a live view of this or what you're switching between, but the difference in style is quite dramatic. So then if I'm going to do multiple exposures, when I'm in bulb mode, I can do really short exposures and just do a sequence of them. So I can come in here and say I forgot to light the wheels. So I'll figure out, right now I'm not taking an exposure, I'll figure out what size light would I need. If I don't want a painterly look, I want an even one, I could light it like this and just open the shutter, light it a little, and either turn off the flashlight or turn off the shutter, see if it's too bright. But that I'll be able to easily put in my image. Then I can go to the next wheel, trying to get it where I don't overspray onto the body. Right, like that, and then I open the shutter, might move it a little bit, and close it. So I know I have those wheels covered, and I can put them into any one of those shots, especially if the rest of the image is almost black. Now that it's this dark, I can do all sorts of things. I can get weird light sources. Let's see if I have any here. And let's see how much extra space we have around the car. On the left side, there is some empty space over by the tree. And let's see if we can put something over there. what I have is a dog, what do you call this? Leash? A dog leash. And on the end of the dog leash, I have some very small keychain LED lights. And if I turn those on, there are various colors. And I'll even put a thick one that changes color in. If I have all those things, I can create a weird foreign looking object in there. And that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm not going to get the car to look just right because I can use the other exposures we already have. If I do this a lot with a dog leash, I will end up putting on a glove because otherwise this dog leash can chafe my hands. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to take the leash, just hold it in my hand, and then I'm going to start to swing it around like this. And then not just swing it around like this, but I'm going to rotate my body around. And if I go all the way around without hitting me like that, then I can create what looks like a big globe of light. All these different colors of light. It's what's known as an orb. The only problem with it is when you rotate your body around, you don't want to just turn in place. What you want to do instead is put an object on the ground that you can see. Make it a small object. Well, I'm just going to put that roll of gaffer's tape. And what you want to do is you'll be spinning this light source. I'll start spinning mine. You want to keep the light source above whatever that object is you put on the ground. So you're not rotating perfectly around where you're standing. Instead, you're walking around in a kind of a circle around whatever that reference point is to try to keep it where your light source is directly above it. I'm going to stop that before I end up hitting the camera without knowing it. But you need a little thing on the ground. Something like a dime or a quarter is nice. It's shiny so you can see the reflection, and it's easy to retouch out. A roll of gaffer's tape you might see. So I'm going to walk back behind the car. So I'm not going to hit the car, but I'm going to see if I'm in the camera's view. John, can you see in the camera?
Come to your...
Hold on a moment.
Into the scene just about half a foot. Yeah, that...
Now my orb, though,
spin it.
is going to be...
Yeah, you actually have good bit of safety on the side there.
Okay, so I'm going to make sure I put my gaffer's tape roll on the ground right there. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to. I'm going to be looking down the entire time. And the first time I do this, we might find out it's too dark, and then I'll just either up my ISO setting or I'll open up my aperture. So I still have that remote trigger in my hand, so I can actually open and close the shutter. And let's see what we can get. I'm going to first start spinning this to get it consistent speed, consistent height, and make sure I'm right over the gaffer's tape roll. Then I have my remote trigger in my hand. If I didn't, I would just yell to John. I'd say, open, and he'd be there to press the shutter. And I'm going to press it right now. Once I press it, I'm going to start walking around very slowly in a circle around that roll of gaffer's tape, and I will attempt to keep my lights aligned directly above the roll of gaffer's tape. I think one of my lights went out. And you only have to go around halfway to get a full orb, but if you need it to be brighter, you can go all the way around. The only challenge with going all the way around is it's much easier to screw up, where you might bump something. And so going halfway around makes it a little bit sure of success. So I think I made it all the way around. I'll close the shutter. Only after I've closed the shutter do I stop spinning it. Do we get anything?
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's an orb. And I see some little light on the right. I'm not sure what that was. See if I can zoom up. I can see my shadow in there. No, that's not my shadow. There's some trees. I thought my shadow might have been blocking the sun, but I did light something over on the right. I'm not sure what it is.
The rear window.
Might be a reflection on the back of the car, and that could actually look cool. It will prove that the orb was created next to the car as opposed to being just put in. Now, if you look at the orb, I can tell that I didn't do it perfect. The bottom of the orb looks pretty good. That's where I was looking the whole time. I was looking at that roll of gaffer's tape on the ground. But the top of the orb seems to have kind of 2 rotation points. That tells me I was most likely spinning at an angle. And I wasn't spinning straight up and down. So when it was above my head, it was either a little bit behind me or a little bit in front of me. So let's try another one.
So Ben, we have about less than 15 minutes left.
Sure.
And we're wondering if you would like to do a person.
Person, sure.
That would be great. I think there's a lot of people in the chat room that would love to see that.
Okay, well, I mean, we're going to do people a lot more in the studio when we're not, we don't have a sky to deal with and other things. But we can do that. The other thing I could do is to show you a couple other things in here. But let me turn this
I'm going to
off.
say do whatever you want, given that we have the car here in the sky.
Yeah.
Okay.
So other things I can do is if I want some weird, unusual looking stuff, is I have a different light source here that is known as EL wire. That stands for electroluminescent wire. It's this. And EL wires, just in here there are 2 AA batteries. And if I press this little button, I'll turn it on. And you can't tell with this light falling, but this is glowing now like neon would. And this, if I turn off my flashlight, you can see it glowing, is some cool stuff. A lot of people use this to create outfits. Like, have you ever seen anybody at a fair or something and their outfit has some design on it that glows? It's often made out of this because you can sew it into your fabric and stuff. So what if I want a more interesting surrounding around the car instead of having just normal grass? I would like something that might look like water, but he's not going to let me float his car, right? So what I'm going to do is just take this wire and I'm going to make sure I never let it stand still. Instead, I'll constantly be moving it. And if I just look at it with my eyes when it's moving, it looks like it's a thicker filament or something. And if I do enough of that, this can look a bit like water. So I'm going to walk around the car and I'm just going to hide the red light that's on the on-off, the battery pack with my thumb, or I'd put a piece of gaffer's tape over it. And let's see what we can do. I think, do I still have the wireless trigger?
I can take care of it.
Okay. But do you know where it is?
It's in your pocket, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Hold on a moment. Or it might be right here. There it is. Okay. The top button, not the bottom.
Yeah.
And so let's see what we can do. Open. I'm not sure how much of the scene is in here, so I'm not sure how wide to go. Usually I would take about 2 tries with this to know how much of the ground to cover. And you can come back a second time if you need to. And I'll go a little bit more in front in case there's space. Then if I want in the same photograph to have the car, I'll just drop that off to the side and I'll use my flashlight. Come in and light the car. And the car could potentially look like it's floating in blue stuff. I'm not sure if it'll be bright enough yet, though. So I might have to redo it. I'll do a quick pop of light in the headlights. And then we can close. And let's see if it's bright enough. Get anything? I got just little hints. Let's make so it's pronounced. So it didn't show up all that much. That means I'm going to go to ISO 200 and F8. That should make it a bit brighter. And I can see my glowing wire off on the side of the grass here. In fact, let me really make it show up. I'll bring this ISO up a little further. ISO 400 F8.
Ready?
Just a moment. Open. And if you have any onlookers, they always think you're really weird. They have no idea what you're doing. Now I can paint the car, but if I do, we're much more sensitive to light. Just put a little bit of light in the car. Since we're so sensitive to light. And close. There we go. See the ground? So that can look like water if you use blue EL wire, but EL wire comes in all sorts of colors. So if you want it to look like fire, get red EL wire. The car is lit a little bit, but I can take any of the previous light paintings and overlay them on this to make it look as if that car is sitting there with all this blue. Also, I can take the orb that we made earlier and add it to this because the camera hasn't moved. As long as the camera hasn't moved, we can have this sea of blue, an orb behind it, and then all the light paints we had of the car, any of them, and blue sky out of any one of our other shots. So that is EL wire. And unfortunately, the button on it doesn't just go on and off. It goes flashy, usually longer flashy, and then off. So you can't easily turn it on and off. Other things that I'll commonly use, like here, if I want any of those trees to show up, I can do a separate exposure for the trees. I might need to get a little bit closer to them, so my flashlight has reach. And then, let's see if we can get any light in them. Open.
Open.
This is a powerful flashlight, so I can do this. If you have a household flashlight, you have to be standing right next to those trees. I'm standing about a car length and a half behind the Volkswagen, and I just thought to get down on my knees so I don't block the camera's view of what I'm lighting. All right, close. How's it look?
We didn't get all that much.
Didn't? Okay. Well, I'd probably either have to get closer to the trees, do a longer exposure, or grab an even brighter flashlight. So let's see what we got. All right. Well, let me do just one more, because then we can make a really final image when we get these all together tomorrow. I'm going to walk closer to the trees, or just do a longer exposure. Open.
Open.
So I'm just sitting on my knees here, so I hopefully don't create a silhouette against these. I might still. I'd usually try to make sure that I'm lined up behind the car, so the car is really what's blocking your view of me. Hopefully this will be enough. My last pass. Close.
Closed.
How is it?
Got a little bit on this, the side over here with the big trees. Coming across to the other side of the bug's not quite so lit.
All right. But you get the
Get
idea.
an idea.
So just realize that all these exposures were done without moving the camera, and therefore every one of these exposures can be combined together in Photoshop. And so if I forgot to light the wheels in one, I can grab the wheels off of another. If the hood wasn't lit enough in one, I can grab the lit hood off of another. And by putting all of these images together, I can create a final image that is really refined, even though possibly not one of these is completely refined. And that's what we'll do tomorrow. And tomorrow we'll talk about lighting people. We'll talk about creating other kind of special effects like that orb. And I'll show you how you can use different light sources to do quite different things. So I don't know how much time we have left here. Does anybody have a count?
We've got about 5 minutes.
Okay.
We want to get you
Yeah.
to the chat host before we leave.
With the chat host? Okay.
Susan, say hi to them.
Sounds good. Why don't we do that now?
Come on
Keep your
over.
eyes ready.
Oh, that's right.
Woo!
Let there be lights.
I'll just look like this the whole time.
That's a little bright.
Woo!
Yeah.
All right, Ben. That was amazing. I heard from the folks who are watching at home that this looks just awesome. We've never done anything like this. So thank you so much. Any
Yeah.
final words?
I can't wait to see what it looks like on video because I have no clue there. I'm used to just seeing the end result. And just keep in mind that if you don't move your tripod, we're going to so be able to refine that result tomorrow that it's ridiculous. Make a really pristine looking image. Yeah.
Very cool, Ben. Well, folks, we are done with this segment tonight, but we will see you back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and we're going to have the full day of light painting. And what are
Yeah.
we going to be doing in the studio?
In the studio, we'll work starting off with some tabletop subjects where you don't need a powerful flashlight because your light doesn't have to go very far. And in fact, the smaller the light, the better. And then we'll work our way up to slightly larger subjects. We'll have somebody possibly sitting in a chair, and so we'll light a human subject. And then we'll move on. If we have the space, we might put out a sofa and display one or more people there as well. And I'll talk about any special light sources I use, the way I modify my light sources, and a lot of the Photoshop techniques that I use to really enhance things. Like that orb that was there, I can make it look dramatically better with a few sliders in Photoshop. So yeah, it's the whole thing pretty much from start to finish of how I think about it.
Great. And we were collecting your questions, so we will have all of those to ask Ben tomorrow. And I just want to give a huge shout out to the Creative Live crew. We are actually here in the dark, and we have managed to film this, especially our camera guys who are filming Ben in the complete dark. So that is very incredible. Another shout out also to Wolfberg's Motorworks, and a big thank you to Ben as well. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks.
And folks, we will see you tomorrow morning.
See you tomorrow.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Creative Live. Today we are here with Ben Wilmore, and we are doing a workshop on light painting. Very excited about today. Folks, this is our pre-show banter, so we're checking our video and our audio. Please let us know in the chat rooms if everything is going smoothly for you. My name is Susan Roderick, and this